The Chicago Bears looked so much better on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, but how much of that was actual improvement that's sustainable, and how much of it was a result of playing Matt Eberflus and a bad Cowboys team?
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. On the show today, I want to look at the things that went well for the Chicago Bears against the Cowboys in the context of what feels real and what feels more like, well, it's the Cowboys. Some of that comes down to Caleb Williams' own development and steps forward. Is he in this Bears offense beating up on a bad Cowboys defense, or is some of that sustainable within that? And same thing for the Bears offense, for the Bears defense going up against the Cowboys offense, where, CeeDee Lamb is out and the Cowboys offensive line is struggling. So was it really an improved defense, or was it just a matchup that kind of worked well for them? And we'll look at through the context of some of these younger Bears defenders that stepped up and seem to be trending in a very positive direction. And then we'll look a little more closely at the things that maybe seem the least sustainable, the stuff that probably isn't going to keep up, from week to week here, but that doesn't mean, they're never going to be able to do it again. It's just some of it is a product of some of the bad teams. Some stuff is luck in football games as well. But I want to start with Caleb Williams in the offense, because that's the one that feels like it was the most favorable of the matchups, and also the thing that felt the most important from taking away from this game of the progress they made on that side of the ball and with the quarterback position is the thing that should have the most influence on the short and long-term success of this Bears team. And so being able to sustain that is going to be the most important thing. But Matt Eberflus' Dallas Cowboys defense at least has looked like maybe the worst defense in the NFL, certainly bottom 5 with some injuries and also the loss of Micah Parsons. And so I think there are a lot of aspects of this Bears offensive performance that were sustainable. And I think there are some aspects maybe that just weren't yet. Like something that stands out right away. When Caleb Williams has been now able to dial in those deep shots, when he hits Luther Burden and hits Rome Odunze downfield. Yes, in some senses, those guys were very open against less than stellar coverage, but the challenge for Caleb Williams in the past on those deep throws has not been connected to how open the players were, right? It's been usually overthrowing those guys where the timing is just not quite right, where he's expecting a player to be somewhere and can't get it in. I think about the DJ Moore throw. I think was that in week 1 against the Vikings when he was breaking free off the sideline and he's wide open. And he doesn't miss that throw because of Brian Flores' defense. He just, the timing, the expectation, the throw just wasn't where it needed to be. But I think as he's been able to have more time on task and build those connections with Rome Odunze and practice those deep shots with Luther Burden, those types of timing and connection aspects feels like real sustainable progress that doesn't have anything to do with Matt Eberflus' defense. And I thought this game really kind of showed some of that progress that feels more about Caleb than specifically the things the opponent were doing. And Ben Johnson did a really good job of sort of describing this on Monday during his press conference when he was asked about some of Caleb Williams' progress. Here, let's take a listen to Ben Johnson.
He's doing a much better job getting us in and out of the huddle. I said that last night. I thought we weren't as pressed on the shot clock as maybe what we had been the first 2 games. We still have some room for improvement just in terms of our alignments and all being on the same page. I think that there are a few plays we would want back just as an entire unit that we didn't quite get off as clean as we wanted to from a procedure standpoint. But I do see growth there. And then in terms of the execution, he's getting a lot better, a lot more comfortable with his footwork. It's repetitions, not just for the concepts that we've been doing from the springtime to training camp, but also we're putting in new ones each week. And so he's got a good system in place right now that he's adhering to, and it's showing up on game day to where we're starting to reap some of the rewards from that.
And this is one of Caleb's better games of his career from the pocket. I know you've talked during the offseason about coaching him to play within structure. How have you seen him adhere to that, and then the results of it yesterday? What were your takes?
Yeah, well, when the offensive line protects like that, it's a lot easier to play from the pocket. I thought 0 sacks. We had a very clean pocket for the most part. That's a starting point, and so he's got the ability to escape and extend and all that. But man, if we can keep him in there, our playmakers are some dynamic route runners that we can get the ball to him in space, and so. I think he saw when he plays on time, he's trusting the hitches within his drops, and we can be an explosive offense that way.
It's those kinds of operational aspects and timing things that feels really sustainable, not just based on a bad Dallas Cowboys defense. Like, yes, the receivers aren't going to be as consistently open all the time, and we'll talk about some of the things that aren't as sustainable. Some of the pass blocking probably isn't going to be that sustainable, and certainly that was a big factor in the offensive success, but getting guys lined up correctly, not having false starts, and knowing where players were going to be on time and on target, as he talked about, going through the dropbacks and then the hitches. Like, those are all things that are easier when it is a lesser defense, but also the defense doesn't have a lot of influence on how you're going, the timing of your drop back. Your steps have to match up with the receivers. Like, it's purely like who's running at the right speed, at the right depth, at the right distance, and the quarterback matching that with his eyes and his body that are a little bit independent of the actual defensive adjustments there. And that feels like, not every play, not every defense is he going to be able to have the time to be perfectly in rhythm all the time. But like, this type of progress suggests that, like, no matter what defense he's going against, when he does have the clean pocket, this is stuff that feels like it is like learned and settling in. It doesn't mean there won't still be step backs in that regard. Doesn't mean there won't still be mistakes in the future, but like, the progress there feels real. A couple of other things about the offense that feel like it's in that category as well. I think one of the things that feels sustainable is Ben Johnson's ability to get creative on offense. That when the traditional handoff running game isn't working with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, he gets Caleb Williams going in the read option game. He gets receiver handoffs to Olamide Zaccheaus and DJ Moore, and then they had that 11 straight running play drive. It wasn't just 11 straight handoffs to Swift and Monangai because they were only getting 2 or 3 yards every time they handed it off. But the offensive play caller has the creativity to manufacture a running game in non-traditional ways. It feels like something Ben Johnson has as a skill that, not that that's always going to work against any defense, but wasn't specifically just purely a weakness of the Matt Eberflus defense, because they were generally stopping the run pretty well in this game. And in the same category, I'll throw in, like, Ben Johnson has enough of a track record of successful trick plays that also feels somewhat sustainable. Like, not all the trick plays against the Cowboys worked. And certainly against other defenses, you're not necessarily going to get 63-yard touchdowns on your flea flickers. But I do think Ben Johnson's ability to continue to come up with different types of trick plays that are effective to varying degrees is something that also feels sustainable. Not that they're going to hit him every time, or that every week they're going to run 5 of them, but that he can keep pulling tricks up his from out of his sleeves that I think can work over the course of a season and not just be a bad Matt Eberflus defense falling for every little thing you throw at them there. That's definitely a big part of it, but definitely not all of it. And we'll get to some of the parts of it that are specific to, they played a bad defense, so they're not going to be able to do that every week. But I want to turn our attention over to the Chicago Bears defense that also looked much improved, also held down a pretty good Dallas Cowboys offense, but an offense that had its own types of flaws. So I want to look at some of the aspects of that feel sustainable, and then we'll get into the things that feel like, They still got some problems they got to solve when the opponent starts getting a little bit better, say after the bye week with the Washington Commanders. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. The best part is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost whenever you need it. Whether it's the middle of your workday and you just need to pull something out of your pocket to get you through it in the crunch time, or you're out on the golf course and you get into the back nine and the sun's been beating down on you all day and you're really feeling a little bit drained. Wherever you need it, you can have the 5 Hour Energy shot with you and ready to go. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. This Bears defense made plenty of its own progress against the Dallas Cowboys. Probably still has more flaws and things to be worried about moving forward, but also some things we had been kind of waiting to see from that group that we hadn't seen for the first couple of games that came through against the Cowboys. And this side of the ball definitely, has its areas that don't feel as sustainable, but I think there are some things that are real growth and progress in this game. And to me, a lot of it comes down to the younger Bears players that are a couple of seasons into their careers starting to take some of those steps forward that is more like the natural progression of where their careers are. And it's not to say that with any player, you don't just reach a certain stage and then you're good from here on out. They're players that played really well against the Cowboys are still going to have bad games in the near future. And it's not like every game is going to be a perfect game, for the rest of the season. But I think there's some aspects of this that have been building for a couple of weeks or all season so far, and that we can trust will continue to generally trend in the positive direction because we've seen that trend starting. Like Gervon Dexter is a great example of this. He is among the leaders at defensive tackle in generating pass rush pressure this season. He's kind of, I don't know if it's quiet for us, but nationally quietly been a very effective pass rusher. Run defense has had some ups and downs, but especially against this Cowboys team, he really shined through. But he had been having it. The first couple of weeks has been building up, and a little bit less against the Lions, but played better against the Vikings. I mean, it's not that he's been incrementally improving every single week, but it's not just one big game from Gervon Dexter that we hadn't seen any flashes of through the first couple of games of the season. This to me felt very real and very sustainable in terms of winning in different ways and not just doing it against bad offensive linemen, but able to have a lot of success in a variety of ways against a variety of opponents. He's got 9 pressures this season. It's 11th most of defensive tackles in football, and his pass rush win rate is up there very highly as well. So that to me feels like something where Dexter's going to keep being a force as a pass rusher. Some games will be quieter, some games will be bigger, but that is real player development and progress. And even some guys who were struggling and started to play better against the Cowboys, I think we can have some faith that it's not just, the Cowboys are bad. I think about Montez Sweat has a sack and played well. And I think Montez Sweat has earned a lot of criticism and then also sometimes gets unfairly criticized. It's one of those weird things where I think these are both true at the same time, where he's better than people think he is and he's still not as good as he needs to be, where I don't think people often notice all the times he's getting double and triple teamed and still beating pass blockers, but never able to actually get to the quarterback because he beats the first guy, but then the second guy is there to help and pick him up. And that's still that's a one-on-one pass rush win. It just doesn't end up going down as a pressure or a hit or a sack on the quarterback, but finally gets a sack and you can start to feel okay, Sweat can be rounding into form a little bit. I think we can trust that he's going to continue to make more of an impact. Still not as much of an impact. I mean, I still need to see him make an even bigger impact, but I think people act like Sweat has done nothing this season, and that's not true. We saw glimpses of it against the Vikings and the Lions. It has been building, and then really came through against the Dallas Cowboys. And the other name I want to throw in here, I think will be a little bit more controversial, but I've got some good evidence to back me up here. I think Tyreek Stevenson's big game against the Cowboys is more than just one big game. I know through the first 2 weeks, I think he had a perfect passer rating allowed against him, and he was struggling, for sure. And this Cowboys game was what felt like a 180 from those first 2 games in terms of the Tyreek Stevenson we saw. And so that right away jumps out and screams and says, oh, well, that must be kind of an aberration, right? CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, so then, he's got easier matchups with George Pickens and then a bunch of nobodies in Dallas's receiving room. So, he's going to fall back to earth and have a rough game, the moment he plays really good wide receivers once again. And he's not going to play that great like he did against the Cowboys every week from here on out. But I want you to hear Tyreek Stevenson himself, in his own words, talks about something, especially this past week leading up to the Cowboys game, that started to click for him, that tells me he's making real progress. Even if he's not, solved and now he's a perfect cornerback who's never going to make any mistakes, but it does feel like real progress from Tyreek Stevenson, and maybe progress that he should have made sooner, but hey, we'll take it. Better late than never.
Is there an example of like a little thing that you needed to hone in on that you could share?
Pretty much it was just like I had a couple plays this week where we had a kind of zone defense and I could not like grab it for some reason, and just coming in the morning after practice and working on that play, seeing them do it to different teams, seeing them doing it to different styles of defense and just things like that to just make sure that I'm consistent. I can see it over and over again.
Looking at old Saints film, or are you looking at your own defense?
We're looking at both. I'm pretty much looking at everything, and if I can get my hands on some old OC films that he done did, and he gonna try to bring a play back from way back when, I'm with it, because best thing I could do for this team is make sure that I'm prepared to go out there and get the win.
So 2 things stood out for me there from Tyreek Stevenson. One, that really sounds to me like something clicking, right? Where he's like, I was just having trouble figuring this out, and then I figured it out, and boy, was I able to play a lot more confident and a lot more aggressive and really sharp out there against the Dallas Cowboys. Like, that feels real, right? It's like a aspect of the Bears defense that he figured out and seems to have unlocked. Again, doesn't mean it's going to be perfect every single week and he's not going to make mistakes, but like, that's growth. That's progress. That feels sustainable. The other thing that stands out is like we're in year 3 of Tyreek Stevenson, and we just figured out that preparation is important. I mean, I'm sure he knows that preparation is important, but like it's concerning that there hasn't been the right messaging or leadership on the team, whether it's coaches or teammates or whatever it is, to get that idea and concept to him sooner and make it more clear. Like, hey, it's been 2 seasons and some change, and you're having some trouble with a couple of zone concepts, but if you just work harder at it and prepare more and put extra time into it, you can figure it out. And like, it would have been nice if that had started 2 years ago, but like, at least we're there now, and that feels real, because like, now that he's done it and seen it, he can keep doing it that way and keep approaching it that way, and in theory then keep growing and building off of that, and maybe give you some more comfort in at least one of your starting cornerbacks while Jalen Johnson is out. I'll also say, besides just these individual players, the other thing that I think is sustainable from the defensive performance against the Cowboys is that it felt like Dennis Allen got into his bag a little bit more as far as scheming up pass rush, showing blitz a lot and then blitzing sometimes and finding ways to get better pass rushing matchups. It felt like we saw more creativity at the line of scrimmage and more willingness to go after the quarterback at the line of scrimmage from Dennis Allen, that helped generate more of a pass rush in a way that was not purely just a reflection of the Cowboys offensive line, but a reflection of the defensive coaching staff being able to accomplish more than they had been able to through the first couple of games, where maybe guys were just still getting comfortable in the defense and with injuries too, you're not sure, can you run everything, or maybe you have to not simplify things, but sort of shrink your playbook a little bit just because you got backup cornerbacks and backup linebackers in there, and you're like, well, okay, maybe we can't do everything we want to, but after a couple weeks of those backups getting starter reps all week at practice and playing in these games, now maybe he can do a little bit more with it, and that feels like it can also sustain regardless of opponent for further defensive success. So I think there is real aspects on both sides of the ball. I also think there were some things that were not necessarily specific to the Cowboys, but specific to a bad Cowboys team that the Bears were able to do in this game that we just can't count on them being able to do every week. Maybe the Raiders could be bad enough that they could do it again next week, but certainly not every week. So we'll go through some of the things that we shouldn't expect to keep seeing next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets that you can use all across the app, in addition to the winnings from your $5 bet. So if you want to place a $5 bet on Bears-Raiders, where the betting line, the Bears are underdogs on the road, 1.5 points. The money line has Bears minus 102 if you want to bet on them straight up. And the over-under is set at 47.5 points. So a $5 bet on that game, any other sport, any prop bets. If you win that first $5 bet, you're getting $300 in bonus bets to use wherever you want. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So some of what the Bears did against the Cowboys is just not going to be super sustainable from week to week. And just like how the sustainable stuff doesn't mean it's going to happen every week, it also means the unsustainable stuff is never going to happen again, right? It could happen as soon as next week against the Raiders. But I think there's some stuff that just is harder to replicate week in and week out when you're not playing a team that's struggling as much as the Dallas Cowboys did on Sunday. I think, first of all, the pass protection for Caleb Williams is not going to be that good every single week. His first game of his career, his NFL career, without being sacked. Like, you hope you can keep doing that, and you aim to keep doing that, but like, let's be honest, this was a Dallas Cowboys pass rush without Micah Parsons and didn't have Jadeveon Clowney out there yet. They weren't getting a ton going up front, and that was a big part of what the Bears wanted to do offensively. And like we said, a lot of what Caleb did can be sustainable, somewhat independent of that. I mean, you need a certain amount of pass protection, but it doesn't have to be that good for what Caleb Williams wants to do in this offense. And it's just, they're going to face pass rushers. I mean, we got Max Crosby on the docket this coming week. Like, there are going to be pass rushers that give this Bears offensive line more problems than what the Dallas Cowboys defensive line could give them. And that's just a reality that this group is going to continue to have to work through. Like, I do think the offensive line is gelling and is slowly getting better, but maybe not quite that easy. Same thing, I think part of the pass rush from the Bears is not going to get home that much. Like, Dominique Robinson is not going to be able to take one step and turn the corner on a left tackle every single week for a sack. Like, the Bears pass rush got home more and created more pressure against the Cowboys than they will be able to do consistently every week. I do think that group got better, but it's not going to be that good every single week. That was a Cowboys offensive line, especially the tackles, really were struggling to hold up on the edge. And then I think perhaps the most, let me turn to this too quickly for as a consequence of the offensive line and the offense. Like, we talked about Caleb hitting those deep bombs to Luther Burden and Rome Odunze and how the timing of those is going to be sustainable. I think what won't be sustainable is the frequency. We saw a lot of deep shots in this game, and they hit on a lot of deep shots. And that, to me, was more of a reflection of the offensive line and the amount of time he had for those plays to develop, to be able to hit those shots. Not that they were all late developing plays, but just deeper throws tend to require more time. And that more time is a reflection of your offensive line. So if the pass protection isn't as good, then you're not going to get as many deep shots. I think when he does take deep shots, the timing and the connection will be sustainably better. But I think what won't be sustainable is how many deep shots he gets to take every single week, because the offensive line pass protection won't be as sustainable every single week. And then the big one that is famously not sustainable is always turnovers. 3 interceptions against the Cowboys, 2 against Dak Prescott. Like, the first interception where it hits George Pickens in the hands and then he drops it, and then Tremaine Edmonds, right place, right time, great diving interception. Absolutely great play. And I don't want to say it's lucky because it was a great individual effort, but like, not every week is a wide receiver going to drop a pass that you intercept, right? Like that is uncommon. That is an anomaly. And the broader NFL analytics and statistics have borne out over the last couple of decades that like turnovers is something that fluctuates a lot. You can see a team sometimes get hot, and we've seen the 2018 Bears defense has a bunch of turnovers, but like it's hard to do that every single week. You know, I think the second interception where, you know, Edmonds just stepped in front of the pass and read it the whole way, that's a little bit more sustainable for sure. But like the third one's against the backup quarterback, like you're not going to face a lot of backup quarterbacks that put the ball in harm's way the same way. So I just don't think we can't count on, the Bears defense got 3 turnovers against the Cowboys. So now they're going to start getting 2 turnovers a game and giving the offense, you know, a bunch of extra opportunities to drive down. That is just really, really hard to sustain from week to week. We might see more in general than we saw the first couple of weeks, but that to me was a little bit of luck and a little bit of like Cowboys on their back heels trying to make something happen here. And like there's a reason why you didn't see as much of that, certainly against the Detroit Lions, because they weren't pressed up. And they got J.J. McCarthy a little bit in there. But like, plus I didn't even I mentioned the Tyreek Stevenson ripping the ball out of Javonte Williams' hands. Like there were a lot of turnovers in this game, and turnovers tend to be a lot more luck-based than skill-based in the broad scheme of things. Individual interceptions, lots of skill. Lots of interceptions and turnovers, more luck related to happen to have things go exactly the way you want it to. And so that's another aspect of this. It doesn't quite feel as sustainable because at the end of the day, the Bears do still have real problems to fix. As much as this game gave you a sigh of relief and felt like some proof of concept to say, okay, like things are not falling apart, things are moving forward, like there's still real questions about this offensive and defensive line. There's still real questions about this Bears running game and this Bears run defense that were both bad against an otherwise bad Dallas Cowboys team. Like this is not all problems are solved and everything will be great from here on out. But I do think it shows that they can beat lesser teams definitively. I think we can't discount that the Vikings and Lions, the Bears' first 2 opponents they lost to, might both still be really good teams, even though they haven't always looked at every single week so far this season. Certainly saw the Lions on Monday Night Football take the Ravens all the way and really, you know, look dominant in that game. We saw the Vikings play better even without J.J. McCarthy out there. Like those 2 teams might be pretty good that the Bears lost to, but the fact that they can beat up on a Cowboys team says, hey, they can beat some bad teams. And so when you've got the Las Vegas Raiders now in week 4, albeit on the road, it's a 1-2 Raiders team that rank in the bottom 10 in offense and defense. And, you know, they've played some good teams too. So we don't know exactly how bad the Raiders are, but this feels like a team that the Bears should be able to beat if they beat up on the Cowboys the way that they did. So like, then you're at 2-2 and you go in the bye week and then you face a Commanders team that we all fear, but we also know, you know, they have had their share of struggles so far this season, even at 2-1, but like James Daniels has not been the James Daniels he was, or not James Daniels, excuse me, Jaden Daniels has not been the Jaden Daniels he was last season. So, you know what I mean? It's just to say that, like, this team will be better. This team will be closer in games, but not everything is fixed. And I think that's the big takeaway from Bears Cowboys. Some sustainable, some not, but some really important stuff looks sustainable. And I think that's perhaps, the best thing to take away from this game. Before you know it, we'll be turning our attention to the Raiders and getting our preview for Bears Raiders coming up on Crossover Thursday here on Locked On Bears, where we talk to Locked On Raiders host your boy Q to get the latest on what's going on in Vegas. So make sure you hit the subscribe button for Locked On Bears on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, because I co-host it every Tuesday morning with Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans. He hosts it every day. I co-host it with him on Tuesday mornings. And we talked about Lions-Ravens Monday Night Football game. We talked about injuries to Nick Bosa of the 49ers and CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Then we talked about which head coach might get fired first. Mike McDaniel in Miami, Brian Callahan in Tennessee, or Brian Daboll in New York with the Giants. So lots more football talk over at Locked On NFL. Make that your second listen. Coming back tomorrow, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.